Now we come on to the question of whether or not you need a tripod for food photography. Now, I love this particular image here because it shows people working in different ways with different cameras and they're all getting great food pics. So there's no real right or wrong way, just what works for you. Now, personally, I really like using a tripod for food photography, but let's take a look at the question in a bit more detail. First of all, you need to ask yourself a few questions. What sort of food photography do you do? And what do you intend to do with the final images? There are quite a few different types of food photography, but for the purposes of this discussion, let's consider the calmer, more styled food photo shoot versus a fast-paced reportage style. If you're capturing food on the go in a busy kitchen, perhaps from prep to the plated dish and then featuring the people who work there as well, a tripod's going to be really unpractical. It would be much better to shoot handheld with a lens like the 50mm f1.8 that copes with varying light conditions very well. However, if you're styling and shooting food in a dedicated area, it doesn't have to be a studio, it could be a table near a window, then a tripod will be very useful. Using a tripod really makes you slow down, and I don't mean that in a negative way. When we handhold the camera, it really encourages us to be fast, clicking away, and not always spotting distractions or weaknesses in our shots until later. And it can seem a bit cumbersome at first to set up a tripod to get the angle right, and it can feel as if you've lost some of the creativity that handholding gives you. But for me, there's a massive benefit to using the tripod. And that's because it helps so much with styling. Once the camera's on the tripod, fixed into the correct position, with the lens showing the frame or the field of view of the image, I'm free to style within that area. If I were to handhold the camera, I'd never achieve exactly the same angle or field of view each time I stop shooting to style and then pick the camera up again. In this short video, I'm styling an autumn pumpkin soup shot. Every time my hands disappear out of the frame, I'm checking the image on the camera, which is mounted on a tripod, and then I'm making changes to the styling. I think the video demonstrates really well how much tweaking and changing goes into styling a shot and how much easier it was made by using the tripod and being able to check the composition constantly. Another advantage to using a tripod is that your image quality will be much better. We haven't covered camera settings yet, but once we do, you'll see how much a tripod helps you get great quality images even when the light's poor. It also really helps with image sharpness, as there's no human interaction to cause camera shake. There's just as much adjusting and reviewing when you're styling a flat lay, so once again, a tripod is a big help. However, I have said in a previous session that I would recommend using your phone for flat lays. And the reason for that is that it takes a while to set up the camera and tripod for an overhead shot, and it's just so much quicker with a phone and it still produces amazing results. But you have to consider what you're doing with the final image, as phones can't beat cameras when quality really matters. If your final image is for your social media, then it's absolutely fine to use a phone. However, if it's going to be a hero shot for your website or if it's for print, then you should really use your camera. They've got more megapixels, so the overall image size and quality will be better. And cameras do less processing of the image than phones, and you can control the processing yourself when you edit. I find that my phone can make colours too intense and over sharpen the image too, making them look a little bit surreal sometimes. Now onto the question of which tripod to go for. I'm going to assume that you're going to be using it mainly for food photography and that you're not going to be carrying it around for long periods of time. If you do want a tripod for travel photography, landscapes, etc. as well, that could affect your choice, but I'd be tempted to have a lighter alternative for that kind of use. Tripods can range in price for as little as £20 to £500 or more. I'd go for the best one that you can afford that's got all the features that you require. The tripod that you choose has got to be able to support the weight of your camera with its heaviest lens on, and it should feel sturdy, but it doesn't need to withstand gale force winds on top of a mountain. It should also extend high enough that you can shoot food on different height work surfaces at varying angles. The main section of the tripod has 3 extendable legs. It might also have a central column. Then there's the tripod head, which is where the camera is attached using a removable plate. Be careful when you choose your tripod, as many don't come with the head and are pretty useless without it, and if you have to buy a head separately, it can be a very expensive option. There's a really confusing variety of tripod heads available, so it's easier if you try and choose a tripod that's got a head attached already. Just make sure that it covers all the angles and orientations that you need for food photography. And also check the fixing plate. On cheaper tripods, these can be quite poor, and after a while the weight of the camera can cause it to start slipping downwards. And as with anything, read some reviews before you buy. A key feature that you should be looking for on tripods for food photography is a horizontal arm that allows you to do overhead shots. In some tripods, this is a central column when it's not in use, but with a simple button it can be pulled through into a horizontal position. A reasonable tripod with all these features will typically cost you between £200 and £300. Having said all of that in favour of tripods, I don't always use one in the studio. Once I've styled the shot and I've captured my image, I quite often get taken with the urge to get the camera off the tripod and shoot some additional images handheld.